All right, look at that.
They look pretty good.
We do look all right. Sitting in a birch forest.
Yeah.
It's springtime.
The birds are chirping. Yeah.
It's springtime here in the birch forest. Okay, hello everyone. Oh, did we text Ryan?
Are people on?
No, no one is on yet. Actually, and I'll pull up over here. Normally we would have started at noon.
Right.
Or to stroll in. We'll send out an email and to tell them that we are live. Usually we have this done ahead of time. What's that?
You can just talk right now.
Okay. We're live, but we have no guests, so we would just clip this anyway. Oops. Oh, we do have 7 people.
Okay.
So on LinkedIn, we have 7 people already. Okay, everyone, sorry for the delay. There we go. Okay, everyone, sorry for the delay. We got chatting here and did not notice the time. But I am in Melville, New York, correct?
Correct. Long Island.
Sitting with Andy Goodman, owner of Sherwood Lumber. And you can see he's got the Sherwood swag on today.
Yeah. Dressed up for the occasion.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
You're very welcome. And we're going to talk today a little bit about the history of the business. Andy's been in it for a while, and what he's experienced, what he thinks of the current dynamics, and just kind of his little bit of vision looking forward. So we were just chatting a minute ago where he was, talking a lot about the dynamics, the structure of actually moving wood, and how that doesn't change. Wood weighs what it weighs, and it's the size of what it is. 30 years ago, a 2x4 measured 2x4.
It was a little thicker then.
Probably
it's a little scant now today.
But it's still the same piece of wood, and it still needs to be moved and put into a structure. And how that's different than, I think you said you had a relative in this business, in a different business.
Right.
So when
we were just talking, so I was talking with Mike about a conversation I had yesterday afternoon with a cousin of mine who's headed to the Cape, and he's in the textile business, and we were just comparing notes about the past couple of years in the pandemic and how he thrived, and I mentioned how our industry has thrived, and but the difference is as we spoke about, was that he had to make changes for his business is 60 years old. He's had to make dramatic changes in the 60 years from where he started out and to where he's doing business today, whether it be overseas, primarily for manufacturing, versus what was done in New York City when it all started.
Right.
And the locality, the transportations, the logistics, the globalization, the need to rely on political events that disrupt. And I compared notes to him and said, and he mentioned that if I didn't have kids in the business, as I had mentioned, you go into the Cape and Shapley and Mid Cape, it sold out this past year after being 100-year-old businesses. And he said, I guess you would have done the same had you not had kids coming into the business based on performances. I said, I probably would have if there was no succession plan in place here. But with the statistics of being the second generation, which I am, of 30% or thereabouts that survive, and going into a third generation, which we do have now, of maybe 7 or 8% survive that. I said, I don't believe it's generational family businesses that are the risk of transferring ownership and success, such as the industry and the trade that you're in. what's taken place in our trade for sure, for the wholesale lumber trade or the retail lumber trade. Yeah, there's plenty of new names and new outlets and less manufacturers and less number of yards. But the mode of, the industry really hasn't changed from producing and growing the timber and harvesting the timber and manufacturing and shipping it via ship or rail car or truckload in the maximum capacity weight, and the cost of it was costly back in the day and now that much more costly. That really what has changed for me is that we're not that smart and resourceful for being a third generation, as much as the fact that the rug wasn't pulled out from under like so many other industries that have changed overnight, the taxi industry or
Right.
whatever other all over. So that's our good fortune, and I don't see. And we were talking about the future. That seems to be, nothing's going to be digital in terms of putting in a truckload of lumber through your phone and through it all.
Right.
So
You can't create a truckload of lumber with your phone.
right. So that's what we were just talking
Now,
about.
I think the counter to that, though, is when everything is stable like that, how do you differentiate yourself? So, like Sherwood Lumber has had many threats from, competition, and yet it's stayed in business that long. Um, so it has to be a bit of, when things are stable, it's got to be a bit of a challenge to fend off the threats or to excel. So, what do you think it is about your company that has allowed you to be successful for 60 years?
It's like, so there hasn't always been, the successes we've all enjoyed. Hopefully, everybody on the call has been enjoying the benefits of the trade that we're in the past couple of years, and fortunate to be in our industry versus the entertainment or whatever else was hurt so much. How we've succeeded was one. The idea of a commodity is, you know every year it gets more commoditized. Trying to take the commodity out of the commodity has been what we've always done.
Okay.
And that uh, realizing and being as efficient, being a low cost producer, if you will, being efficient because the margins over times have always been under pressure, and certain times a lot worse than other times. So you need to be lean and mean, and you need to be efficient. And the competition may have not gone out of business, but they made choices not to take such risks on the commodity world. So the fact is that we've been in the commodity world, and we've had a stake in the ground 24/7 in the commodity world with the risk that comes along with it. And fortunately, we've stayed with it, and so many others have gone away from that.
Yeah, and I think the word risk gets a bad rap because risk isn't good or bad. It just is what it is. It's the opportunity for change, and sometimes unknown change. So when you have a healthy respect for risk, it allows you to take advantage of opportunities, and it allows you to stay clear of of pitfalls. Right. Um, back in the downturn of '06, '07.
Yeah.
I mean, those were some hard times. What did Sherwood do to make it through those hard times? Do you think that was unique to your company?
Well, we did grow in number of head of employees during that time rather than shed because of situations that developed that we were able to join forces with other individuals around the country and from other businesses that helped the top line.
Mhm.
And we understood that the top line was going to suffer with a housing of a 500,000 housing starts versus 2 million housing
All right,
starts.
that's kind of interesting. So when the business was shrinking, you were growing headcount.
Headcount and facilities and what would be market share in terms of number of customers and locations where we could sell to. And that That was very different than what people felt. And from the supply channel, we did get a lot of kudos. There
Mhm.
were people did turn their heads and say, sure, we before that downturn, Sherwood maintained a very low profile. We were bigger than you think. We were under the radar.
Right.
We did not want to pose a threat to other people by being out there and posting our name out. And we just conducted our business as usual. And when the downturn came, you realized you had to be a little bit more pompous or a little bit more out there to gain some attention from the dealer, and or because
Well, there was a big opportunity.
yeah.
I mean, there were less people around, and I'm guessing some of your probably good customers went away at the same time.
The core customer base at that time for Sherwood uh, was different than today because of the consolidation that's taken place in the last 10 15 years. So uh, much of our business were with the independent dealers who served on a quality but not price basis.
Okay.
And they, again, were not necessarily dealing from the strength of having a price to lead with, but a quality. And we were that supply channel. So they didn't lose that same similar business that others. So we didn't have that many customers that we really had reliance on that went out of business at all.
So
They were able to weather it because they had the same concept of being more than just a commodity.
I think it's interesting that the supply channel we have just gone through. You could say we still are in. It was the reverse of that time. There were too many goods chasing not enough business. Now we've got more business chasing too few goods. Um, you know, what is it today? Like when you say you have your customers that say we want this and you don't have it. What are you doing to change that or to address that?
So when you talk about the supply channel and not having it,
Right.
uh, many many parts of our trade are short in supply. In the core part of our business, other than overselling, we haven't had the challenge of buying the product. It's just a
Okay.
matter of at what price you want to buy the product. Yes, there's been delays, whether there've been shortage of rail cars or trucks to get the material in, and that could be the reason that we may not have it. But we were never afraid not to have it because of the price that we were going to have to bear to have it and to pass it along. That didn't stop us from stocking at all. And I think people in general, as prices rise, you know how much it could cost you on the fall. Everybody from even back from the shortage from the downturn, everybody was playing a much closer to the vest inventory, just in time
Sure.
inventory, virtual warehouse, how they can do it. So the whole trade has, taken less number of days of stock and put it into other risks of some sort. So you know, we've succeeded because of the retrenchment of so many others who were unwilling to take that risk and continue to stay 24/7
Yeah, I
stock.
mean that had to take some guts to say, "Oh, we're going to see four digits on these. Let's buy in," and then it continued and it continued.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, if you have it to sell, I was surprised at the elasticity of lumber prices. Meaning, I thought the rise in lumber prices was really going to shut down the market, and it just didn't. Um, and kudos to those like Sherwood who bought in and had the product.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, the price was going to retard the willingness of the buyer there. I think when we advanced past $500, we heard more noise at $600 and $700 and $800
Yeah, for sure. Oh
than
yeah,
we heard at 13, 14, and 15.
it was bizarre.
Yeah.
And then today, $1,000 wood. Oh, that's a value. I was
You have
I
some, I'll buy some.
yeah, it's just I just was emailing with someone, and the price that we had someone willing to pay, the guy said, "Oh, that's too cheap." And I sent back, "LOL. When did you think that $1,200 was going to be too cheap?" And he kind of laughed back at that as well. All right, so we kind of know where we came from. We know where we're at today. Where do we go from here? That's kind of of course, the $100,000 question. Um, Not so much in price, but one of the things I see that Sherwood is doing is adding some products that maybe differentiate yourself in the market. Some sidings and some railings and decking products. Um, these are products that are you drop shipping them for your customers or stocking them for their inventories?
Good question, and it's a new development for Sherwood in the past 5 years or so, and that's outdoor living space products.
Okay.
Um, and as I said before, there are so many of our competitors or wholesale distributors that may have at one time had lumber as a majority of their sales, and they've shifted that over to some type of specialty product to serve the customer needs, and they've been very successful at it. They could have gone into moldings and trims and windows and doors and sidings and roofings and whatever variety it is, and with a higher margin. And we know what that business looks like, and it's a more sustainable, less risk business, but it requires again good efficiencies. We've entered into the outdoor living space, the decking and the siding and the railing um, um, and more, and to come. And it's been growing at a fast pace, and the we're growing too fast in the sense that the orders that we have, we're not drop shipping for a
Okay.
majority of it. We're warehousing it. So we're running out of warehouse space, and we just signed another lease just this week for additional warehouse
Oh, that's
space.
cool.
And it takes up a lot, it takes up a lot of space and time and labor, but we're committed to that like we've been committed to the lumber, and we're on a very steep trajectory of sales and continue and growing the market share and going as far as we possibly can with our own trucks and service, adding weekly, if not monthly, new delivery services into new markets, as we just announced a daily a run into Delaware. We just started.
Okay.
So
How many trucks do you guys run?
we've been buying trucks over lately. We've been buying the cabs that have a sleeping quarter, so we can take longer hauls.
Okay.
And I would say, and they're based out of Massachusetts right now, primarily some on Long Island. There's probably about 10 in the fleet now
Okay.
for our delivery. Besides dedicated, we have many dedicated drivers that are not Sherwood owned, but dedicated drivers.
So, all right, let's look to the future and something that I'm kind of fascinated with right now. Engineered lumber is so scarce and it's on allocation and all of these things. We built houses just fine without engineered lumber, and all of a sudden now we seem to we. Why can't we go back to just regular lumber? And the whole question here really is, how do you see us building in the future? Like, what do you see from as a supplier of materials? And part of your responsibility, I would say, is helping your customers understand here's what is available to build with today. So, how do you see in the future that we're going to be building?
And that's a good question. I mean, there have been many uh, recent new developments, whether it be the printing models,
3D model, right?
or whether it be the mass timber type
Yeah.
structures, whether it be manufactured, how much the manufactured component uh, building there is, or stick framing out in the job site. Uh, Labor is always is a driver and seems to be concerned more than ever for the future of our trade
Hmm.
in all aspects. Uh, that will ever, will evolve how it's been evolving and make those necessary changes. I think what's probably more, when you bring up engineered, where's the engineered product, or where's the wood going to come from? And over time, we know that there's the timber base up in Canada, and specifically on the west coast, is shrinking, and uh, south is growing,
Yeah.
and the world's timber, I would assume, in South America and in Europe, is ripe for us. So we'll probably just continue to see more globalization and cross pollination products coming to us from all different parts of the world, as long as the world can be shipping without the major terrible disruptions that we're having due to the wars and other issues.
It is fascinating. Once something gets on a vessel, a boat, it can kind of go anywhere. And the tree, once going back to the old school, you're not going to change a tree. A tree that grows from the same genetics here in the United States that they plant down in South America ends up being the same fiber. The source of it, where it actually grew, might be a little different. Maybe how they manufacture it might be a little different, but wood is wood. And at the end of the day, it is probably the greatest building material that we have. It's green and it's lightweight. It's strong. Um, it's been running in your veins for quite a long time. Um, so I think that that is insightful. You're right. It's the globalization of the war of globalization of our industry. I think is the thing to keep your eye on. That being said, we did a transaction on materials exchange where the wood traveled, I think, 70 miles from the sawmill to the buyer, and it's really cool when you can see wood that doesn't have to go anywhere. Yet it's a commodity market, and the market forces can create opportunities for wood to travel thousands of miles. That's the beauty of the market, and the beauty of efficient distribution, which I think Sherwood time has shown that if you're efficient, like you said, you can be successful. All right, last question: what does Andy Goodman see going forward here that other people don't see? Like where do you think that you're out on an island going, this is what probably is going to happen, and people think you're kind of crazy, maybe even your own family?
Nobody. Uh, I don't know about being crazy or seeing what my vision takes me that others don't. I think I live in the same world as everybody, which is the concern of one, business survival, just a general topic. I mean, everybody has new obstacles and new fears and issues that they have to address. Uh, what our trade, as I said before, hasn't changed that much, other than who are the players at the manufacturing end, who are the uh, who are the players in the distribution and or wholesale brokerage end, and who are the home centers and the retailers, and then the builders. Uh, and that we know is a shrinking community. And so, what vision and what future you have to be prepared for is no different than all of the other types of trades that were independent pharmacies and nurseries and hardware stores and so on and so forth, to the Staples and CVS's of the world and the Walmarts and all. And that's what's happened and happening in our trade, and just taking that much off of the table for what was historically part of our gravy. And how do you combat that? And our future and what our crazy, it's not crazy by any means, we're following much of other models that are are successful, which is key distribution, owning product in brick and mortar, with trucking, with investment, with willing services that seem crazy to deliver one piece or the next day for the convenience. As dealers are accustomed to having to do that, and wholesalers have faced that same uh, uh, pressure to accommodate their customer by serving them on a much smaller and smaller and smaller scale. We were just talking about the lumber futures, how it's going to go down to a truckload. And I was saying, well, soon it will be units, and you'll be buying and going long on units because everything is getting compressed to the service level of what really is the best, service on a silver spoon. So,
And look, you can't sell from an empty shelf. So, well, you can sell an empty shelf maybe, but
a push cart.
a push cart. I think that that's where Sherwood has had their success. Is you need it, it's there. And we were after that downturn, we moved to a spot where we're going to try to optimize our inventory so we don't have anything. And the world has changed. If you want to be successful, you have to have something there to sell. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy, for the interview. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, we have no questions up there. You've got a lot of fans out there.
Thinking you're looking good.
Everybody thinks you're looking good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. I'll put a plug in for Materials Exchange, knowing that behind the company and the brand, there are great people who are really bringing great ideas to our trade and are looking ahead as they want to talk about being crazy, and not that people haven't thought about this, but the action and the effort and the passion behind their interest to make this go and grow and be an aid and an instrument to the success of our trade. I give you a lot of compliments.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Coming from you, that means a lot.
Thank
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week.